IB Nation Sports Talk. It is mailbag night. We're up. We're rolling. Gordy and not getting off to a good start.
What did I do to deserve that?
I know. Like bringing heat right down on you right away. Jesse is already not feeling it today because he's grousing about the Cubs before we were coming on, getting started here. So here we go. They're he's taking little jabs at you. Maybe he'll go for the knockout punch here pretty soon. I don't know.
I've just been getting a lot of pushback recently. First it was the comment section on the
YouTube commenters, and now it's Irish Gordy and not.
I thought Irish Gordy not and I were, on better terms than this, but
I know.
I guess I'll keep my answers short and sweet tonight.
We do have the same last name. IGK, let's have a little fun here. Let's keep it bouncy. What do you say? It is Notre Dame and Central Michigan coming up this week. I don't know about you, Jess, but Jim McElwain, head coach at Central Michigan. Did you know that Jim McElwain is the head coach at Central Michigan?
Did not know that.
I didn't, and you used to live in Michigan, not that far from Central Michigan, but I didn't realize that until watching their game against Michigan State in the season opener a couple of weeks ago. It's like, hey, Jim McElwain, where's he been? Turns out he's been at Central Michigan for the last. This is year 5 for Jim McElwain at Central Michigan. He did not have a bad record at Florida when they showed him the door. He was 22-12 in 2+ seasons. He had a 10-win season, and then mid-year 3, bye-bye. And it's not like things have stabilized really since Jim McElwain has been gone. I'm not saying like, hey, Florida hired Jim McElwain back, but at the same time, a little bit surprising, I think.
It's kind of funny. I actually saw a tweet the other day, and I guess I just wasn't able to connect the dots, but that record that you just mentioned, ever since they let go of him, Florida hasn't had a matching or better record in that same amount of time span. So it's like they showed him the door, and then as a program, they got worse. And so I thought that was pretty interesting myself.
Irish Gordian Knot, turns out he's an Eagles fan. He's been hiding this whole time in plain sight, and he's not very happy with the Cowboys' perspectives. And at least Michael Hahn can have a little bit of fun with it, and I think Joe and some of the other Giants fans that we have, it's like take it had to be an Eagles fan, because like Philly fans don't take anything in stride. I don't think so.
Well, the thing about the Eagles is that they, in my eyes, taken a step back this season. I know it was only game 1, but I thought Mac Jones did some really good things against that defense, which is the strong point of their team. I still thought Jalen Carter had a great game up the middle. I think he had the most pressures on quarterbacks in week 1. So that's good to see your rookie, ultimately taking over to start. But I mean, to be honest with you, I've just never been a fan of the offense that Jalen Hurts runs. I don't think it's overly complex. I think it's pretty simple in nature. Don't get me wrong, Hurts executes, but I think at least half the quarterbacks in the NFL could run that offense just as efficiently.
Yeah. Florida Irish says Jim McElwain apparently couldn't recruit to save his life. I know that the recruiting rankings were not good when McElwain was there, and I think that is ultimately it. But again, look at especially if you're going to compare it to Urban Meyer, whoever it was going to go down, and it's like it's a talent-rich school, and it's nowhere near where things were when Urban Meyer was around. So I don't know. As we know, though, recruiting is a very big part of this. Like I had always for a long time been in the boat of, hey, if you've got a coach and a coaching staff that can coach, develop your guys. Hey, how important are recruiting rankings? But I have definitely come around on that. And where I really started to swing, because I remember after Muffin McGraw and the Irish women won the second national championship, 5 years ago now at this point, had her on the show, and we were talking about some of these other programs like the South Carolinas of the world, Mississippi State, different places that have really grown in terms of women's basketball in the last few years. You've seen some different schools kind of rise to the national scene. And I said, is it just because they're investing more in women's basketball? Is it the coaching? What is it? And she said, it's recruiting. It's bottom line about getting the top players available. And obviously it's different when you compare basketball to football, because you need fewer of the big time recruits to succeed on a basketball floor because of the sheer numbers, football compared to basketball. But at the same time, when you think about it, that's what it comes down to. UConn has been, it's not just because Gino Auriemma is some genius. He's killed it on the recruiting trail forever. Pat Summitt used to kill it on the recruiting trail now there at Tennessee when she was winning her championships. And that's what it comes down to. You start with the best talent possible, you're going to have more success. So I've definitely swung on it's not just player development, being a good X and O coach. Part of the evaluation of a coach in college is also how you recruit. I think it's a big part of it, much bigger part than I gave it credit for a long time. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think that ultimately recruiting. So I think that 70% of coaching if you had to break up the pie of coaching, I'd say that 60% is the actual coaching of it. And then I would say 40% of it is the recruiting. And I think, Nick Saban gets a ton of credit at Alabama, but once you establish yourself as a really good coach, and you start winning games the way Alabama did, then you start recruiting better. And that's what really propelled Alabama into this dynasty mode, quote unquote, is they just kept cycling through the best recruits in the country, in and out every year. And then you combine that with how good of a coach Nick Saban is, and it's no secret, why they're so good every year. And I think Gino Auriemma has followed that same kind of pattern that Nick Saban did. I actually think Gino actually did it before Saban, right? Because he's been at UConn for much longer and has had, longer success. And so again, it's like you establish yourself as a really good coach, you make it an attractive place to come, and then you just start, again, cycle after cycle of recruits. That's when it becomes, it just gets easier for everyone. I think when you're recruiting at a high level, it makes the coaching a lot easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Well, I tell you what, we've got a lot of good questions lined up. It is mailbag night, so keep bringing your questions.
Drop the questions in. I know I'm not Vince DiDario, but I'll try my best today.
That's right.
Unlike the Cubs, who have not been trying their best the last 2 days.
DT, we will start with him. Buy or sell? JD Bertrand being out this week is a big deal.
I would say this would be a large deal if it was next week. I don't see it as a big deal this week, to be honest with you. I think you actually want to be safe and make sure that he's, ultimately prepared for the Ohio State game. I know we talked about you don't want to overlook opponents, but they have plenty of depth at linebacker. And I think it's a case of you would see Kaiser bump over, and then we would talk about who would be playing the will at that point. But I just don't see Bertrand risking it this week because a concussion is such a domino effect. You can immensely make your symptoms a lot worse if you try to come back a lot sooner.
No reason to rush back this week. And I'm not saying you're overlooking Central Michigan, but there's an obvious difference between Central Michigan and Ohio State. And as you just said, we're talking about a head injury. So there's not even any guarantee that, continuing to rest for another week is going to get him back next week, because you just don't know with head injuries how long it's going to take, how long you need to stay in protocol. Just like simple jostling sometimes, simple jogging can affect the brain. So you just don't know. So you're better to stay on the safe side. I think that they will be okay. They have a good linebacking crew, and we all know that they've got some good young guys. We would expect to see them enter anyway. And Leopard asks, with JT banged up, do you think we'll see Drake Bowen Saturday? My feeling on this is we will see more of Drake Bowen, but I would not think that Drake Bowen will be in the starting lineup. I think that Kaiser will slide over most likely and start at the Mike linebacker spot with Maris Leafau beside him at the will. And then,
sorry, that's what I meant. I think I said the will earlier. And then
okay.
I think Sneed would hop over to Rover.
Yeah, and you see more of Sneed at Rover. If they use the Rover, it still depends on how much nickel you're going to see and that kind of stuff. And we will talk in the countdown show, of course, this week. Jesse's going to have some whiteboard for us on that. But then I think that we still see Drake Bowen in the game as well. He would obviously spell Jack Kaiser, for example, assuming Kaiser is a starter. That's the way I think that they would go, with the two veterans starting and then Drake Bowen worked in there in reserve. He's shaking. Jesse's shaking his head, so he agrees with that.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
Well.
Sorry. I didn't know if you needed any more feedback from me.
Tim says, sounded like Al Golden loves Bowen. I don't doubt that he loves Bowen, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to start. There's still I think he loves a lot of guys. I think he likes a lot. He likes most of the talent that he's got on this team. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get an answer or a glimpse of that tomorrow when we talk to Marcus Freeman at noon. Nick, is it just me or does it feel like we are just playing around to see what works and what doesn't, and that we're going to start putting it on teams once we get to Ohio State?
I think there's a little bit of that. I think that when we talked about Notre Dame playing a team like Tennessee State a couple weeks ago, they run a similar defense that Ohio State will run. And obviously, Ohio State's athletes will be a step up. They'll be a little bit faster. They'll be able to read a little bit better. Their corners are going to be a little bit better in coverage and et cetera down the line. And I just think it would be a disadvantage knowing that kind of information and not really kind of coming up with, plays that are going to work. Like, I think there's more so of a filtering of, we really like these plays and we're on these plays. So I think it's more or less kind of coming up with plays you really like and know that are going to work, and then kind of holding on to them. And I've said this before, there's you want to give certain looks on film, certain base formations on film. And then for an opponent like Ohio State, you just want to throw a small wrinkle in there, right? Like maybe instead of the running back, on a play action, he steps up and blocks. What if he leaks out into the flat? Just small stuff like that is, I think, what you'll see. I think you'll see Notre Dame, again, coming up with plays they feel really comfortable with, and then finding ways to manipulate or tweak them a little bit for an opponent like Ohio State.
And remember, they went with that readjusted line, whatever you want to call it, the realignment with the line that sprung Audric Estime, and they used a few more times last week as well. And we talked about yesterday, it was probably more specific to North Carolina State and being able to attack North Carolina State with the running game because of the way they line up in that defense. But at the same time, you weren't saving that. You still got to do what it takes to win the game. So I don't think they've been completely vanilla. There are still things that are going on, from pass route concepts and run blocking schemes and all those things that are different this year compared to last year. But like you said, there are still some things in these first few games you're not going to show when you do have an Ohio State coming up in week 4. But I wouldn't call it completely vanilla like some people have characterized, I think. Like, we both agree with that, right?
Yeah.
So, Sean Michael, that's actually my middle name, Sean Michael. I don't know if Michael is your last name or your middle name, but we spell it Sean the same. For everyone, if you're GP and MF, what's your first series on O look like this week? Any new wrinkles to put on film, or just go with what got you here? Thanks as always, and go Irish. What do you think?
Yeah, this question actually plays into one that I saw not too long ago. I know you're a busy guy and you're used to Vince in here starring away. But David Carpenter asked a similar question.
Okay.
Geared at me, so I'll take the lead on this one. If you were the offensive coordinator and drawn up the first two plays of the game against Central Michigan, what would they be and why? And I think that this question goes nicely with that. So I'm going to hit, I'm going to get it. I'm going to hit two birds with one stone, as they say. I want to see a play action to start the game. And the reason why I say that is because Notre Dame has gotten very predictable on first down. They love to run the ball on first down. They love to run between the tackles with Audric Estime on first down. I think that they should hit up hard play action and take a shot deep on the first play. So that would be my very first play of the game. I just want to see them cut it loose at some point, right? Like they're running nice routes that develop and, that's fine and everything. But when are we going to actually see them just cut it loose? Like just throw a bomb downfield and see what happens. You know what I mean? So if I'm Notre Dame and I've shown a lot of, running on early downs, especially early in the game, I'm going to hard play action to start the game, and I'm letting it loose downfield.
I'm trying to remember, was the pass to Tobias, was that a first down pass? Is that when they finally, because they were not doing a lot of throwing on first down. And then I remember second half, they came out, I want to say it was a play. It was definitely a first down pass, and they got a first down out of it right away. Was it Tobias? I can't remember off the top of my head. Do you remember?
I can't remember.
Just say no.
Yeah, I know. But then my second play of the game would be after hitting a big old, big pass play like that. I come out in that overload look or uneven look that Notre Dame showed last week with putting three linemen on one side and then a guard and tight end on the backside. And I'd either run the power scheme out of that or I'd run a fake power and try to find Holden Stays again for the second play of the game. I think that is what I would look to do in my first two plays of the game. I'd hit a hard play action, and I'd line up in that kind of jumbo or overload look where they put three linemen to one side and either run it right up the middle and tell them to block it or hit another hard play action out of that and look for Holden Stays.
It was Holden Stays. I got out. I remembered. I always do my my running sheet here. Tobias was it was a first down. It was 1st and 20. It wasn't the first play of the series, but it was 1st and 20, and he hit Tobias on that post, and they gained 45 yards. So it was a first down because there was a holding on Joe Alt the play before that. And then 3 series later, first play of the drive, 1st and 10, they hit the 29-yard pass to Holden Stays, and then he got Stays with a 40-yard touchdown pass 2 plays later. So in both cases, they threw on first down. Very successful when you're running the ball the way you do. And especially, I agree. I would love to see a play action right off the boot, right off the bat, especially when you've got Audric Estime there.
That's what I mean. It's so easy with that big, like you line up and you see Notre Dame's big offensive lineman, and then you see that big old Audric Estime in the backfield. I mean, again, it's pretty likely a run play is coming. And, not to segue too hard here, and, I'll keep it kind of short and simple, but I was listening a little bit of Greg McElroy this week, and he is big on Holden Stays and just how good of a pass catcher he is.
I'll just cut you off right there because we've got some of Greg McElroy's comments coming up in rapid fire on Holden Stays. So,
sorry, I forgot that I didn't know that part was in there.
Did you not see the revision? You got another revision email today.
I got a lot going on. Revision emails are not my thing.
Yeah. Well, see, what happens is when my co-hosts wait until a couple hours before the show to tell me that they're switching days, it can throw a wrench into some things. So Jesse on Wednesday, not on Thursday. I'm just saying. Or maybe it's more appropriately Vince on Thursday, not on Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
I'm not putting it on you. I'm putting it on that other guy. Gordian Knott, which offensive and defensive player has surprised you the most this season to this point?
I would say the easy answer defensively is Maris Liufau. I think Marist has played. I think the thing about Marist is last year he just didn't finish plays. This year he's finishing plays and he's doing it a lot quicker. Like last year, I think it took him a half tick longer to get to his spot. This year he's getting to his spot quicker and he's finishing his plays. That's an easy answer. I think that truly the person who has surprised me the most is the way that Xavier Watts has stepped up in the secondary. He has been tremendous, and it really showed the last game when he was able to cover the middle of the field like that. I can't remember. It was late in the game, and that play where a lot of guys in the secondary will come through the wide receiver's back and get a DPI call. When he came over the top and got that pass breakup, and then the next play being rewarded with the interception. I believe that was Xavier Watts. But I just think that he's been tremendous stepping
the
up
Matrix
in that
play.
role.
Vince and I talked about it Monday, the Matrix play, where it's like he came over and somehow managed to almost go all the way over the top of the intended receiver and swatted that ball out of there without any pass interference on that play. I was amazed that the officials didn't flag it for interference on the field, just as amazing as it looked. But you're right. It was a great play, very athletic play that he made. I think he's a good one. Leafau is a good one. I think DJ Brown has been solid so far, and we saw some good play from DJ Brown, better play from DJ Brown this past week. The biggest thing with DJ has just been like he's been at the right place almost all the time this year. The biggest thing is just making sure that he's a sound tackler, and we saw that better last week against North Carolina State. And so if that continues, I think that it can be a really good year for him. I'll just say offensively, I mean, I haven't been totally surprised by a lot of guys, but I'll just say the production that Jaden Greathouse is giving them right now. The fact that he's found the end zone as much as he has found it already, and he is sharing the team lead in terms of receptions right now. So just because he's a freshman, not because of, any talent or anything. It's not a surprise from a talent standpoint. It is just a surprise because he's a freshman. As much as Marcus Freeman said that he would be seeing the field this year, we still had to see it, and he is produced from the get-go. And so kind of piggybacking on that, does Greathouse become the alpha dog receiver over the next 2 years? Will he be Notre Dame's Jackson Smith and Jigba? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so my surprising player on offense would be Greathouse.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
No, a little bit, but that's all right. It would be either Greathouse, but again, I think Greathouse is such the easy answer because he's got the 3 touchdowns. He's got, the receptions. Like, of course, that's what sticks out. But I think to me, the most surprising guy is the production out of Jeremiah Love so quickly.
He'd be my second.
Because of just he doesn't run like a true freshman, is what I think. And I think the way I haven't seen a back like Audric Estime builds up to top speed, right? Like he's downhill, builds up to top speed. And when he gets to top speed, he's just as fast as anyone in that running back room. But as soon as Jeremiah Love touches the ball, it's like he is out of there. Like he is instantly fast. And I think that is what's most impressive about his game. Like he gets to that second and third level so quickly, like if you were thinking of it, like most guys in a 40-yard dash, their 10-yard split, their first 10-yard split is their slowest split. With Jeremiah Love, it's like he's just running top speed as soon as he touches the ball. So I think that's who's been most impressive to me. And then what did that lead into? I got off topic a little bit.
Is Greathouse going to be the alpha dog? And hold on here just a second. Where did Salty's comment go? He says the great one is already the alpha dog.
The alpha dog. Sorry.
Will Greathouse be the alpha dog over the next couple years in the
I think that this is an obvious yes, because if you're a true freshman and you're having this sort of production already, you're going to expect the game to elevate. But I think what we can't get ahead of ourselves, because he has someone like Sam Hartman at the quarterback position. I think that helps him out tremendously. Like that bridges the gap of being a true freshman in offense. So I think it's hard. Like I think he'll be the alpha, sure, but I think that there needs to be a quarterback who can get him the ball the same way.
And that's still got to find that out after this year.
Right,
Because
like that's
now
a big question mark. Who's going to be that guy?
we're going to get spoiled this year, and then there's going to be a huge question mark heading to next year. Well, let's save those questions for a later date. Speaking again of which, El Conquistador, how many times has this salty guy, I love it. How many times has he sent you personal messages begging you to get Great House on the show?
Salty brings up every show that I'm on now. I try to come up with a more fun way to calculate offensive production this year in terms of the wide receivers. And every show he asks me and brings up the fact that my spreadsheet was deficient. And have I taken the time to recalibrate yet? The answer is no. But I think if you got Great House on this show, there would be Salty would play that podcast on loop every day.
I think you're right about that. DJ wants to know, do we think Al Golden blitzes as much against Ohio State? This is certainly a couple games down the road, but almost constantly vacating the shallow middle seems dangerous with them.
There were two things I was critical of this team. One, based on their performance against NC State, I did not like that they kept running between the tackles on first and second down. That got fixed to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't really hit the edges like I thought they would. Defensively, I just don't understand. Like, there was no need. I know, like, you want to, get, like, if you blitz on third and long, the overall rationale is you get in a quarterback's face and you rush up his throwing process, right? Like, that's a different way to look at it. But Brennan Armstrong's not a good quarterback, and I think you needed to make him beat you with his arm. And so blitzing on third down, I thought they did a little bit too much of that. And so, yeah, I don't think that they need to blitz Ohio State so much because their wide receivers are better. And while Notre Dame's secondary is good, I just don't think you want to put them in that matchup or situation where they need to guard those guys. Give those wide receivers more potential space in the field to work with if you're going to vacate zones by bringing blitzers. So, again, with a young quarterback like Kyle McCord and a guy who hasn't proven himself, I'm going to make him prove that he's going to beat me by, dropping into coverage and making him read coverage and beat me in coverage. Like, I don't want to just blitz and give the quarterback man-on-man. It's easy when you blitz and go man-on-man. So I think that they need to force Kyle McCord to beat them.
And it's not always blitzing. It's where you're bringing the pressure from. Like, I've never been a big fan of blitzing the linebackers, as I think because of what we talked about, because it vacates so much up the middle. I don't mind bringing heat off the edge or a safety blitz or those kind of things. I'm a little bit more uneasy about the linebackers just because of the responsibility that they have. And if you blitz the wrong gap, it can lead to just a simple play can turn into a very big play.
Well, the thing is, too, Ohio State has two very good running backs. So if you blitz and then just allow the quarterback to dump it off to the running back on like a screen or a flat route, like, again, that's something that's easy for Kyle McCord to do and negate the blitz. Like, that's going to be Kyle McCord's biggest game of the season, right? Like, it's under the lights, 2 top 10 ranked opponents. Like, you got to do everything to make him beat you. Don't make his game easier. Make him beat you.
Jesse, Pat wants you to grade number 24, Jack Kaiser. What do you think of Kaiser's play so far?
Like, this is this is a hard question just to be thrown at because, like, I'm not keeping like a binocular on Kaiser the entire game. And so I guess I would generalize by saying I think that the 3 linebackers have been tremendous so far to start this season, especially with the speculation and kind of people, the doubt and the questions that's been around them. Like
the big microscope that has been on them. Yeah.
Right. And I think obviously everyone knows Maris has been better. I think Bertrand is Bertrand. Like, his game has been better, but he's always the consistent rock of the defense. And I find Kaiser to kind of be that same way. Like, I think that Maris is always going to be kind of your wild card, kind of like your lottery guy. Like, sometimes he might make a bad miss, but then other plays he might make a whoa, where did that come from type play. Like, he absolutely destroyed someone this past game. I can't remember who, but he laid a hit stick on someone and just looked like a missile, right? But I think the thing about Jack Kaiser is he's he's very consistent like Bertrand. He's not going to mess up a lot of the time. He's going to make the plays consistently. And then I think I think Kaiser's best game was against Navy, and the way that him and Bertrand were able to funnel the ball to each other and make really good tackles. So I just think that Bertrand does a good job of staying within his role. I don't think you see anything really extraordinary out of him. But again, he doesn't miss his assignment very often. And when you're playing linebacker, I think that's very important.
He hasn't played as much because of the fact that he is the rover, and the last couple of games, the Navy game, obviously you don't play as much nickel because you're playing against the triple option. So he was out there more. He played well. He tackled pretty well, with the biggest exception being when he was trying to rip the ball away from that Navy running back and ended up kind of giving him a few more yards because he couldn't rip it out instead of just tackling him. But because of the fact they've played more nickel the last couple of games, you haven't seen as much of Jack Kaiser. You saw more of him now when JD went out, which again is like you ask, what they might do this weekend. I think you start off with more Kaiser. Definitely. I agree though. I agree with what you're saying. I think that all three linebackers have been improved this year. Tackling has been better. I'm not saying it's been perfect, but it has definitely been better. They've been much more on assignment. And I just think that there is something to having your defensive coordinator in year 2 after 3 defensive coordinators in as many seasons, your defensive coordinator in year 2, plus the fact that Al Golden talked about how he simplified some things, gotten rid of some things. He was able to focus more attention in the offseason on specific opponents that he didn't get as much of a chance to do when he came in out of the NFL the year before. I think all of those things have helped those linebackers, and I think we're going to continue to see steady and steady to really good play out of the unit. And Jack Kaiser is a big part of that, I think. I'd like to see more of him personally, but again, Leofau has been better this year as well, so there's really no reason not to have him out there. Mailbag, 2-part, he says. Thoughts on establishing a regular series with Ohio State every 4 years, and 2, maybe having the trophy if Notre Dame wins. We are the ND University, and they are just Ohio State. Do you want more Ohio State, Jess?
I think that, and this kind of goes into what we talked about yesterday in terms of Michigan, I think that they should do a rotating schedule of Ohio State and Michigan. I think that you should play each of those teams at least one time every 4 years. You don't have to go on and off with them every year. But I think you could rotate between a home and away with Michigan, and then a home and away with Ohio State, a home and away with Michigan, a home and away with Ohio State. I think when you're talking in terms of the biggest brands and some of the best programs in college football, I mean, Notre Dame is how far from Columbus? Like 3 hours, 4 hours?
Roughly. You've driven it more than me. You should know.
Right. And then, Ann Arbor is just 3 hours away. Like, these schools are so close in proximity, and they are the programs of the Midwest. And so I don't see I think it's great for both schools because it's another quality opponent. You get a real idea of where you're at. And I think it draws a lot of fans. Like, there's going to be a lot of Ohio State fans at that Notre Dame game. And I think vice versa, we saw a lot of Notre Dame fans at Ohio State, so I don't mind it. And I do think it would be a good idea. And I actually, I just thought of something. I am going to be in Columbus next Thursday.
Oh, really?
I'm doing a
Before
career
the
fair.
game, huh?
I'm doing a career fair at Ohio State. I will be on campus at Ohio State next Thursday, representing the company I work for, trying to recruit other engineers to come work for us.
Interesting. Wow.
I just realized that it's game week and I'm going to be on that campus.
You going to wear any green around town? Or
I might have to throw on my Notre Dame hat.
Quinn, Notre Dame is yet to complete an outside go ball this year. Does that change this week?
Yes. Well, if I were coaching, yes. I already said I want them to go with that play action bomb to start the game. But I just, again, at some point, you got to open up more of the deep, the downfield balls. You don't have to throw them all the time, but it's still got to be something in your bag that you can get to if you really need to at some point, right? Like, I think that there is nothing wrong. Like, they're going to have to try to make big plays against Ohio State. So you don't want to just start bringing out those plays against Ohio State. You want them to be practiced. You want to have already ran them in a game. So I think that you will see a couple more go balls this game.
I just don't know. It's been curious, like, especially you would have thought that there would have been more opportunities against Tennessee State. Now they look deep sometimes against Tennessee State, but you talked about it going in, just the way that Tennessee State was going to play defense, that it was going to be hard to get some deeper shots. And Sam Hartman eventually just had to kind of look down a little bit more. And once he did, he was able to get the ball out pretty quick. And obviously, things got rolling right away. So curious to see, I don't think that teams are living in total, fear of Notre Dame as a deep threat, but they did see what Tobias Merriweather could do last year, for example. They know that that's there. They know that Chris Tyree has speed. So I don't know. Do you think it has anything to do with the way they're being played that they haven't done it, or just that maybe they don't think they need to do as much of it right now?
I think it's a combination of both. And I think it's like a natural progression that they're kind of getting into, deeper and deeper into their playbook. But, a lot of these teams, and we talked Tennessee State, the defense that they played, very conservative. There's always going to be two deep safeties. The same thing with NC State last week. You're going to have, when you have that many defensive backs on the field, there's just a good amount of over-top help. But eventually I think Notre Dame's bread and butter is made by running the ball. So I'll be curious to see when teams put an extra guy in the box and ultimately what that leads to in terms of the offense, because I think that's ultimately what's holding them back right now. Nobody's committing that extra defender to the box.
Right. And sooner or later, it's going to be on Sam Hartman or Notre Dame to see if they can make them pay for that one way or the other. Tommy wants to know how we would grade and rank each position group the first quarter of the season. Tommy, that is a little bit bigger question than a mailbag question. So I did make note of it, and that's something that we will address. Maybe not at the quarter. We might save that for the halfway point here in a couple more games, especially I think probably after Ohio State and Duke, or where we're going to have a really better picture of what these position
I like a
groups look
mid-season
like.
report card.
Yeah. We do have a couple bye weeks, remember, this season.
So you'll need to save some of those content questions for then.
Yes. Mr. 2.0, Drake Bowen coming out party this weekend, even if he doesn't get consistent playing time all year.
I mean, this is the game for Drake Bowen if he's going to get a lot of playing time.
Yeah. I think we'll see him. I just don't know exactly what it's going to look like.
This will be his most usage of the season.
I would think so. I would think that it will be.
Barring, no one else gets hurt down the road.
Yep, exactly. DJ says he thinks that Josh Burnham should get a lot of snaps against Central Michigan and the quarterback. Agree or not? What do you think about that?
Good old Josh Burnham. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Notre Dame's defensive line is it's hockey style, man. They are rotating guys in and out of there, getting fresh legs. And someone like Josh Burnham who can get after the quarterback. I need to see sacks. I need to see the defensive line. They played strong, but I'd like to see the sack game a little bit more. And so, Ohio State's going to get back into some traditional, drop backs and really throw the ball. So in that situation, I would really, really like to see more sacks. And so what do? You keep fresh legs out there. You keep some of your better rushers out there. And I think Josh Burnham is one of those guys. So I do seeing him get a good amount of snaps kind of going forward.
I mean, I think he's going to play. Again, it's going to do you play him more over Tui Alamaka? I don't know, but I think Jordan Botelho, with the athleticism that he has, is still a good weapon out there against Central Michigan and what you're talking about with a mobile quarterback like they've got. But, I think that there's going to be room for a lot of people to play Saturday. The bottom line is just taking care of business early on and getting the game into the direction that you want it to go. And I think that all of that is going to take care of itself. I think we're going to have a chance to see a lot of the two deep across the board out there Saturday. Matt wants to know, out of what formation do you want to see a deep shot?
I would say 11 personnel. Or Notre Dame loves 12 personnel, and I think when you go 12 personnel, you give an even bigger picture of running the ball because you're bringing in two tight ends, right? Like traditionally, that's a big run formation for Notre Dame. And so I think I'm going to revise my answer. I'd like to see him go 12 personnel. Under
show 12,
center.
go deep. Yeah.
I'd say show 12, go under center, and hit a hard play action out of 12, and just have a deep post running across the middle of the field.
Yeah. I like it when they go against tendency, when they show the formation and they do something else. I think Jared Parker has done a much better job of that so far than we saw the last couple of years. I think that he has done a really good job of that. I love what he's done with a lot of the personnel groupings and the formations and stuff like that. It's been kind of fun to watch the way he's approached that. I'm saving a few of these. Got them ready to go. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Oh, baby. I have been born ready for rapid fire. I didn't even know we were getting into it this early.
Did I catch you off guard? Well, it's already 6:45. I mean, we've been at this for a while.
I know. I just looked up myself and I was like, have we really been talking that long?
We have. We've been going. All right. So let's jump into here. Here is ESPN's Greg McElroy on his Always College Football show, and he is talking about Notre Dame. I got to see if I can find the right cut to cue up here as I find the Greg McElroy cuts. Here it is.
Dame to me yesterday, having called the game and seeing them in person, I still have some questions about overall team speed, and that's okay. Because I think they acknowledge that. I think they recognize that. But this team is extremely well coached. Extremely well coached. Marcus Freeman is really, I don't want to say he's growing up before our eyes, but he is doing the little things as a head coach that feel wise beyond his years. Calling timeouts at the end of the half so that they can potentially steal some points, which was a huge, huge momentum play in the game. Calling timeouts before the half, give the ball back to Sam Hartman. They hit a big play right down the right sideline, and the next thing you know, next play, touchdown. I mean, that's Marcus Freeman just gave their offense an extra 7 points. And that was him, to be aggressive and to keep the pedal down and to understand and trust his guys enough to do it.
All right, so there's Greg McElroy. Of course, he was the analyst for ESPN, along with Sean McDonough doing the play-by-play Saturday for the Notre Dame North Carolina State game. You're chuckling. He's not sure about Notre Dame's team speed. There are some fans who actually feel the same. Scale of 1 to 10. How big a concern is Notre Dame's team speed to you, Jess?
So 10 being like, wow, I am overly concerned.
I'm very concerned. Yeah,
I need to fix this right now. I give it. I think I'd land somewhere between a 3 and a 4. I don't necessarily. Well, I'm going to stick with a 3 because I don't think that it's overall very this is there's so many layers to this question. Are they up there with
you're making this a very layered question?
No, but there is layers to it because are they on the same playing field as Alabama in terms of team speed? No. Are they in terms of Ohio State, are they on the same playing field in terms of team speed? No. And I think that was evident when Tobias Merriweather got caught on that pass route over the middle. That is the play that sticks out, and that's the play where I agree with what Greg McElroy is saying, but I think Jared Parker realizes that, and he constructs offensive plays that don't compromise their team speed. Like, he finds a way to integrate the speed that they have and the things that they're good at, and those are successful play calls, right? But I also think the flip side of that is why you're seeing so many freshmen on offense play, because they do have that speed. And I think that is a big reason why Marcus Freeman is getting these guys playing time, is because he knows that these freshmen with their talent and speed unlock another dimension of this offense. And so I just don't think that they're quite there yet. And I think they're kind of working it. They're working it throughout the season of getting these guys comfortable with the offense. And then you'll see that team speed kind of elevate. So do you see why there was layers to that answer?
I see why there's layers, because it's not like there, and McElroy wasn't saying that there's no speed on this team. He's saying team speed. And you're talking about, you've got running backs.
They've got speed on the team.
You've got wide receivers. You've got tight ends. They're obvious, and then you go to the defensive side. You've got the secondary. You've got the linebackers. There are different spots where there's speed. As Holdmai Shillelagh says, Audric Estime registered over 20 miles an hour on his hot dog-fueled touchdown run. He hit almost 21 miles an hour on the 80-yard run. So it's not like there isn't any speed, and that's not what McElroy was saying. And that's why, without being as complex as the mathematician / engineer that you are, I agree with what you're saying, and I put it probably in that 3 to 4 range, because against 90% of the teams Notre Dame is going to see this season, that team speed isn't going to be a big factor. I think the two biggest ones that you've got to point to are going to be Ohio State and USC. USC, we saw it last year, and we've seen it year after year after year with what they do at the wide receiver positions. There's always speed there. But that said, as I've said before, I think that not just from a speed standpoint, but from a technical standpoint as well, this Notre Dame secondary, and again, a lot of them young guys, as you just pointed out, that's why you're seeing some of these young guys like Jeremiah Love, Jaden Greathouse. You flip it, like Christian Gray got to play a little bit more last week. So a lot of these different guys, that's where the speed is, because that's where the recruiting has picked up over the last couple of years. That's why
that's the Marcus Freeman effect.
And that's why the roster is getting deeper with those kind of guys. And so for right now, it's not perfect, but it's definitely getting better. It is, again, as McElroy, he's saying it's not a big issue. Is it going to be an issue in a couple of the bigger games this year? Because Notre Dame will have an advantage there in a lot of different spots, but is it going to show up against an Ohio State who's going to have arguably the best receivers that anyone's going to see this year?
I just think against Ohio State, you can expect to win by going speed on speed, right? Like, Ohio State's faster than you. You got to do things to bridge that gap, be stronger than them, be more physical than, not commit as many penalties. Like, speed is just one aspect of the game. Like, we talk about football players having a 5 tool, it's similar in football. That's just one tool within the toolbox. And a lot of people are giving me flack about Tobias Merriweather. Listen, he was at full speed when he got caught. It's not like he turned and got caught there. He was upfield at full speed and got caught,
And you're not the first one to mention it. It's come up
playing on the same field. Okay.
Yes,
So I don't want
to come up multiple times this week. He got caught by a linebacker from behind. And I've seen plenty of fans say, a guy like Tobias can't get caught by a linebacker from behind. That's a true statement. It's a true statement. So it's not knocking him to say it. It's just pointing him out, or it's fact. It happened. So I don't know what else you can do about it. Like, it's something that's got to continue to get better, and I'm sure that it will.
Right.
Just the way it is. What do you think about what McElroy said about Freeman's game management and coaching, about the way he, used the timeouts and stuff like that?
I think that's been the biggest improvement of Marcus Freeman this season. Him as a coach, him as a game manager. And listen, like, I don't want to just seem like I'm just saying this, but like, in the moment, I was like, damn, these are just so smart timeouts by Marcus Freeman, because we saw what Sam Hartman has done in the 2-minute drill before. He just needs a little bit of clock, right? Like, and that's the thing. I was like, man, there are NFL coaches who still can't figure this out. Yes. And Marcus Freeman is in year 2, and he already knows, okay, you want to get down here? We'll take our timeouts. We'll give our 60-year quarterback the ball back in the 2-minute drill. And even if you sneak a field goal in there, that's a win, let alone a touchdown right before the half. That is such a dagger in the momentum of NC State or any opponent that you play.
Look, man, Andy Reid has won 2 Super Bowls and he's been to 2 more, and he still has a hard time figuring all this stuff out at the end of halves. Mike McCarthy. I mean, do we want to go down that road and start talking about it? There, like you said, Robert Saleh, like if there are plenty of NFL head coaches who struggle with this. And the fact that Marcus Freeman is in year 2 as a head coach and has barely gone through a full season as a head coach and hasn't gone through 2 full seasons, and he's as on point with it as he is. Vince and I were sitting here last week kind of having fun about it, but he was, arguing with himself and through the press box with Marcus Freeman about, are you going to call timeouts or not? Like at the end of the first half against Tennessee State. And, I'm like, well, you got to make sure this is going to happen and this. And then lo and behold, Marcus Freeman uses a couple of timeouts, leaves him 53 seconds. All he needed was 38. He left 15 seconds to spare.
We'll give you 15 back. We didn't need all of it.
He is, and like if you look back at all 3 of the end of the first halves, he has done a great job managing that clock. And as we were talking about the other day, with the right, like the Tennessee State stuff, the way he used the timeouts, that happened right after Antonio Carter got ejected for targeting. So you've got that going on. Last week, you had the Riley Mills hands to the face stuff, and he's out there arguing with the official. And in the midst of all that, he still makes the proper calls with the timeout. So I completely agree. It's pretty amazing that he has shown the maturity as a head coach in such a short amount of time with that kind of thing specifically, that, as you said, can take some NFL head coaches a whole career and they don't even figure it out. All right. So some more Greg McElroy. And this, by the way, I can't remember if I said this is on I want to give credit for the show. It's his Always College Football show, his podcast, Always College Football. So he talked a little Holden Stays as well. He came away from that Notre Dame, North Carolina State game with some positive impressions of Holden Stays.
And then I think, too, the pass catchers. We kind of mentioned him the last couple of weeks. Holden Stays is going to be a problem. He ended up having a big day yesterday, had a good catch and run. In the absence of, obviously, a super elite tight end from a year ago, they're probably not going to be able to replace him as a well-rounded player, but you can replace his receiving ability with Holden Stays. You can replace his end-of-the-line willingness with Mitchell Evans. And then when Raridan gets back in a couple weeks at some point, now you have the guy that's 6'7" and can fly.
All right, so there's Greg McElroy on Holden Stays. Here's my question to you. Do you buy or sell the emergence of Stays as a true X factor for the Irish offense going forward?
I really do. And, first of all, I got to give compliments to Greg McElroy. I think he has an immense knowledge of, everything that he talks about, right? Like he knows about Eli Raridan, who hasn't even seen the field in a long time, right? So it's just like, it's nice and refreshing to hear someone that just has all the facts with them, right?
Just make sure he knows that Jaden Thomas is not a tight end, and I think everyone will be fine.
Right.
Part, right.
I picked, I think it was before the season started. It was a show Vince and I did. I picked Stays to be the guy at tight end. I think that, and just because of what you're bringing up, he's an excellent pass catcher. I didn't think Mitchell Evans was as good of a pass catcher, but he was a better blocker. And that just goes along with what McElroy was saying. I think the combination of them, and when you get into 12 personnel, you have one guy who's, can block, and then you have the other guy who's the pass catcher. And I think Stays is the X factor because you account for everyone else that's shown on film, right? You see Greathouse, you see Tobias with the big frame, you see Tyree with the speed, you see Jaden Thomas with another, a big bodied wide receiver who still moves well. I think why Holden Stays is an X factor is because he is such a great pass catcher. He's got good speed. And it's just another big body that you have to account for. Like, what safety wants to go one-on-one with Holden Stays up a seam? Who wants to tackle Holden Stays in the open field, right? And so I just think it's another great target for Sam Hartman. And when all else fails, there's Holden Stays, right? Like, I could just dump it down to him. So I do really see him as an X factor because I think he goes overlooked and he provides relief to some of these other wide receivers.
Look, he's been wide open a couple of times, and you end up wide open as a tight end because there are so many, like the way that Sam Hartman has spread the ball around to both the receivers and the running backs. I know we talk about it a lot, but it's just Now you add this to that, you can attack all three levels, and there's just no way. If you decide to double one guy, you're going to get burned. And when you have a guy that's already shown what Holden Stays can do, I think that it is. I think that it is going to take it, it's really going to help take this offense to the next level. That doesn't mean that he's going to be like, like the alpha target like Michael Mayer, but I just think that it helps bring so much diversity to the offense. And then, like Greg McElroy talked about, if and when you get Eli Raritan back, that's just another element that you're going to throw in there. But I think that Stays can be a big X factor for these guys, especially when you are going up against Ohio State next week.
Listen, the last thing Sam Hartman needs is another good catcher of the ball, because that's just another person that has to be defended, right? Like if I'm an opposing defense, it's like, pick your battle, right? Like Greathouse can catch the ball, Tobias can catch the ball, James Daniels can catch the ball. It's just like go down the list. They have so many targets, and then when you add someone with the the makeup of Stays, it's just another guy that you have to worry about and game plan around.
I do agree with what you're saying about Greg McElroy. I think that like him as a broadcaster, I think he's
great.
I think he's grown a lot in the last couple of years, and starting to see it now that he's kind of moved up a level in terms of the booth that he's in with Sean. I always enjoy McDonough. I've always liked McDonough, but I feel like, he's been around for a long time now, and he's from Boston, that East Coast, and he's just got enough of that snarkiness in him. Like if you were paying attention last week, you heard him, with like a few, kind of sarcasm, snark bombs in there. I always enjoy that as well when McDonough's doing a game. So Jeff says, speaking of Marcus Freeman growing up as a coach, this upcoming game was a nightmare type of game for this team last year. Have they put that behind them now? What do you think about that?
I think we'll see. I think that this is the true, let's break it down here. Navy on the road in Ireland, right? Like hard to flop in that game, right? Like it's just a national stage. It's the first game of the year. You've had all summer to prepare for the triple option. Like there should be no flop. Okay, you go into game 2, FCS school, right? Like that you should be able to handle business. Okay, now you got NC State on the road, a solid Power 5 team. They play well at home. They have a solid defense, right? And so there's hype to play in that game. This to me is like the first true kind of trapdoor game of the season. Coming back home, you're 3-0. It's Central Michigan. You're favored by more than 30 points. Can you do it again? Can you take care of business at home and not look like a Cal last year or a Marshall last year or a Stanford last year? I think this is the true test of, has Marcus Freeman fully matured, and is this team going to come out and execute how they have the first 3 games of the year?
I completely agree. This is the classic trap game to me. You're coming off North Carolina State, which everyone viewed as the first real test of the season after so lopsidedly beating Navy and Tennessee State in back-to-back weeks. You had a fairly hard-fought win against North Carolina State, even though you kind of ended up winning going away in the end. But now you've got Ohio State coming up next week. And I mentioned Ohio State yesterday to Reggie Brooks, and even he doesn't want to talk about next week in Ohio State. And Marcus Freeman was putting on the hard sell on Monday, talking about what kind of team Central Michigan is and all that kind of stuff. So, this.
They have a good coach.
Yeah, they do. This is where we're going to truly find out, I think, if that kind of stuff is a thing of the past. My gut tells me it is, just because of I really like what I've seen so far. Just again, like going back to Marcus Freeman's organization, and just really with very few exceptions. There have been a few exceptions, but you haven't seen a lot of confusion type stuff going on. More penalties, I think, last week than anyone would like to see. But overall, just the organization, the way things have run so far, it's looked really good so far. So again, my gut tells me it's a thing of the past, but we'll find out for sure this Saturday when we see exactly what that looks like.
I got to let out a disclaimer. El Conquistador, I know who you are. I'm on to you. I'm glad you're back. I missed you the last couple of weeks. I felt like I didn't see you very much.
He's wearing a mask. That's right. He's hiding his true self is what he's doing. All right, so here is Sam Hartman, did a little media last night. Sam Hartman asked about Heisman candidacy. Here's his response.
Up front, our guys are playing really well. And I think the tight ends obviously had a huge day. You got guys, making plays on the outside, and then obviously Audric kind of opened that game up for us. And outside, the receivers made a lot of plays. Tobias had a big catch, right? CT had a huge catch, and that puts me into those conversations. But all that is all washed without everybody around me. GP calling the plays, Gino being there on the sideline, Coach Freeman giving me the opportunity. But again, not that I've been in this situation before, right, at Wake and those different things, and yeah, you see it, you hear it, but again, there's no me in all those conversations without up front, on the outsides, right in the trenches, those guys going to war for me, and shoot, even the scout team guys, even Alexa with nutrition, like all those things go into play for me, and all those different things are huge for us to make sure that I'm healthy and the team has success.
He did everything or said everything except got to support the team. Want to, good Lord willing, I just want to do what I can. Like everywhere, give him credit, because anytime he's been kind of asked about it himself, he starts off talking about his teammates. But what do you think about his response to Heisman candidacy?
I think that his response to Heisman candidacy was very politician-esque. It was like walking around and kissing babies on the forehead, right?
Uh-huh.
He gave praise to the offensive line. He gave praise to the tight ends. He gave praise to Audric. He gave praise to the wide receivers before he even said anything.
The nutritionist. He gave praise to the nutritionist.
Right. And before he even mentioned anything about himself. I think there's serious talks about Sam Hartman and the Heisman, because listen, it comes down, as much as people don't want to admit to it, it still comes down to team success at the end of the day. If Sam Hartman has a tremendous season and Notre Dame makes it to the playoff, potentially a national championship game, hell, if they win the whole thing, as much as they'll tell you it doesn't matter, it matters. And I just think Sam Hartman is a steal and a dark horse at Heisman right now. And I don't know if you saw it, but I sent you a tweet before the show.
I did.
Dave Portnoy put $10,000 on Sam Hartman to win the Heisman. I wish I had that kind of FU money to just throw $10K on Sam Hartman to win the Heisman.
That'll happen when you buy your dollar company back for $1 or whatever it was. I mean, you get to keep a lot of money in your pocket. You get to go around tasting pizza around the country, I think. But yeah, he bet 10 grand at plus 2,000 odds. And I agree with what he said, because
it's a steal.
It's a steal. It's like you might as well get some value out of it. And if you've got the money to throw at it, like I should have bet more this summer, but he was, less I don't want to say sure thing, but he, I got him at plus 3,000 odds. I didn't bet near, anywhere near $10,000. But if you've got a little cash to throw at it, especially right now, because after next week is where we're really going to find out.
Well, that's what he said.
The
value is going to drop when they beat Ohio State in 2 weeks. Right?
A week and a half. Yeah.
Right. And so it's going to get even cheaper. So he's at plus 2,100 on FanDuel right now. So he's already, you got him at plus 3,000. It's already gone down, almost 1,000 points at this rate. And El Conquistador asked who? Dave Portnoy.
The guy
Dave Portnoy,
who
the Barstool
Sports. Yeah. Yeah. 10 grand. And I think I saved it here. So if he screenshotted the bet slip. Yeah. So he bet $10,000 on Sam Hartman at plus 2,000 odds. He would win $210,000 if Sam Hartman wins the Heisman Trophy with that bet. So, hey, but like you said, he's got the FU money to do it. So I'd be in that boat as well.
How is, speaking of Heisman, how is Audric not talked about? He's the leading running back in the country right now.
Because of what you said, he's the running back, and Sam Hartman is the quarterback at Notre Dame. And Sam Hartman if, again, things go the way Notre Dame wants them to go next week, Sam Hartman is going to become the national story. It's not going to become Audric Estime.
That's
it's going
true.
to become Sam Hartman.
That's true. We're going to see a lot of Sam Hartman specials after if they're able to get it done.
Yep, exactly. All right. Let me see. I've got a couple super chats in here still. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Marty Biaggi says he's seen Spencer Schrader kick a 70-yard field goal.
See, this question was hard because it's like, how do you go with this one? Like, it's impressive.
Here's what I want to know. Like, how many of these, especially like high-level guys and guys who are in the NFL, how many of them can just, get one of those, the little stick holder things and go out and kick a 70-yard field goal? Yeah. Like, how many of them could do that? Because it's one thing to, and Biaggi kind of talked about it a little bit in some of his other comments. It's one thing to put the little tripod stick thing up there and kick a long field goal. It's another thing to do it when everyone's lined up and you've got the pressure to do it. You've got game conditions and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So like it's all, it's impressive, but I want to see him hit the 40-yarders. I want to see him hit the 45-yarders. Give me the consistent money ones, because those are going to be the ones that propel you against, an Ohio State or a USC or a one possession game. Like, you can't be missing field goals at the end of a hard, laborious drive against some of these bigger opponents. So I honestly don't care if you can hit it from 70. Show me you can make it from 35 to 45 with consistency.
That's true. I mean, so far they haven't had to rely on field goals. Had the couple tries last week that they ended up. But again, you're going to get into every point is going to be valuable when you're playing Ohio State and USC and, maybe Duke even, and Clemson and those kind of schools. Every point's going to be valuable. You've got to have them.
Well, the thing is, too, it's like the last thing an offense wants to do is feel like they did their job. They were successful. They're coming off the field. And then your quarterback and then your kicker shanks it, because then it's like, well, that's so demoralizing. And it's it can honestly be a big momentum shift in the game when, again, you have such a 10, 15 play drive that only results in a field goal and your kicker shanks it.
Here's a super chat from Tyler Evans. Thanks for the super chat, Tyler. This is one I've been kind of thinking on for a while since I saw it come in. Can you guys rank the Power 5 conferences this year?
Let's go one by one. I'll start with my one, and then you go to your one.
Okay.
I can't believe this is coming out of my mouth, but right now where we sit today, the Big 12 is number one for me.
The Big 12 is. Now,
Yep.
Is that all because of the win over Alabama last week? Is that why you're putting, the Texas win over Alabama? Is that why you're putting them so high?
I couple that with Colorado's success. I couple that.
Colorado's in the Pac-12 still.
Oh, crap. You're right. Man, not a hot start for me.
The Pac-12 would be my number one right now from top to bottom as a conference, because they have, and I was sitting here, they've got 8 teams in the top 25 this week, and I need to pull up the stand. They went through that entire first weekend without a loss, and they have been, now they got a few losses last week. The bottom of the conference, Arizona, both Arizona schools, Cal and Stanford. Shocker. Those are the teams that have lost games so far for the Pac-12. But you've got 8 teams in the Pac-12 who are in the top 25 this week. So as of right now, the Pac-12 is at the top of my list.
I'm revising my answer. You got USC, Oregon, UCLA, Washington, Utah, Colorado. That is what I obviously meant to say. I need the people to give me a mulligan.
Okay. So Pac-12 is my number one. Pac-12 is your number one. I think I'd put the Big Ten number 2 right now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean,
you've got.
I hate the Big Ten West.
I do too. But I mean, you've got. It's very top heavy. You've got Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State all in the top 10 right now.
And Iowa will be pretty solid this year. So it's like,
I'm not going to be surprised if Penn State ends up at least beats at least one of those other 2 teams that are ahead of them right now. Not going all in on Penn State just yet, but I'm liking what I've seen so far. in comparison. So do you put Big Ten number 2?
No, I put the Big Ten at 3. I still think the SEC holds it 2.
Okay. I'm trying to just because, again, like you talk about top heavy. I mean, well, how good is Tennessee? I still think that's a question. Milrow's been a little bit better than I thought, but I put the Big Ten slightly ahead of the SEC. SEC would be my number 3. Now, look, if you lined up and you played SEC against Pac-12, the best teams in the SEC, I think, are going to beat the best teams in the Pac-12. But just based on results right now, I'm going to put the Pac-12 higher because of the depth that they got, and it's still, obviously ironic.
Listen, middle tier SEC teams would stomp the middle tier of the Big Ten. Once you got past Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State.
That's fair. I'll readjust. I'll go SEC.
Sorry, that wasn't me reacting to you. That was El Conquistador calling me an SEC honk in the chat. So
right now I go Pac-12, SEC, Big Ten, Big 12, ACC.
Yeah.
That's how I'd go.
That's how I feel it too.
Yeah, I don't think we needed to spend much more time on that than we needed to. But still a good question there, Tyler. Jay, thanks for the super chat. We need to sit the starting defense whole second half. Can't get a targeting this week. I hope the offense plays at least 3 quarters. Need to air it out. What do you think?
I'm on the boat. So I'll first start with offense. I think the offense needs to play 3 quarters no matter what. Would I like them out at halftime? Sure. But again, I like the idea of being fresh and tuned up for Ohio State. And so, yeah, I want to see the offense in there no matter what for the first 3 quarters. Defensively, I don't really see this as a thing because they use so many players as is. And they use their second string guys. They use some of those third string guys. So, again, I think if you're going to start getting into, seeing more third and, potentially fourth string guys, I think you need to wait until the end of the third quarter for both sides of the ball. But defensively, they already use a lot of guys as is. So it's hard to say really on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep. All right.
Uh-oh, we got a big old one.
Yeah, Matt bringing a super chat. Thank you very much, Matt. Is anyone else concerned about kickoff coverage? I feel like the punt blocks masked a rather disappointing coverage last year, and I've seen some of the same this year. Thoughts? Now remember, kick coverage and punt coverage are 2 completely different things. So if we're talking punt coverage, I mean, it's been okay. Kick coverage, we saw one long return a couple of weeks ago, and it's been hinged on, are they going to spring one here? I'm definitely thinking more about it this year than last year.
I would say I'm not really concerned. But in terms of returning the ball, I'd like to see a little bit more. Chris Tyree really hasn't done anything in terms of punt, and I know that's hard sometimes just because of hang time and where you are catching the ball in terms of the field and the guys running down at you. But in terms of coverage, I haven't really seen anything that's overly concerned me, and I don't want to go out and make a bold statement because again, it's so hard to focus on everything as the game is live happening at you. And unless you're specifically going back and looking at something like, kickoff coverage and punt coverage, it's really hard for me to make, a defiant and bold statement. But I don't think I've seen anything that stuck out like, man, I feel like that's going to come back to haunt them down the road. Or, man, I think Ohio State is going to bust some sort of, big kickoff return against Notre Dame. I haven't seen any of that. And another reason why I'm not overly concerned is because Notre Dame plays their guys on special teams. It's not a portion of the game where you see, second or third stringers in there. There's guys, first string guys and rotational guys, like defensively guys who get into nickel coverages who are out there playing on special teams. And so I think when you have your guys out there, it really sends a message. And I haven't seen anything that's overly concerning yet.
Okay. I can live with that. Final question. from Robert. Just for fun, in a big screen adaptation of the Irish Breakdown story, which actors, past or present, could best portray the IB staff, wishing Coach D's mom the best, and many thanks for everything. Okay, Robert. So I've been thinking about this, and I just jotted some
Oh
down.
boy. I'll let you take this one. I'm not good
Okay.
at all the actors.
Now, this is just off the top of my head. If I had a little bit more time to think about this, I might go in some different directions. Brian Driscoll is going to be James Gandolfini, the mob boss. He's the mob boss from and now I can't
Sopranos.
Sopranos. Thank you, man. I drew a blank there, real quick. So Driscoll is James Gandolfini. Vince, I thought long and hard about Vince. There's some different directions I could go with this, but since Vince loves Rudy, Vince loves Rudy so much, I'm going to go with Jon Favreau from Rudy. D-Bob. He's D-Bob. Jon Favreau. Ryan is Jeremy Renner. Like Ryan has got that East Coast attitude, and like Jeremy Renner, you remember him in The Town. He was kind of the tough guy, Ben Affleck's friend in The Town. So I'm going with Jeremy Renner for Ryan. Jesse, I'm giving you Matt Damon because
Nice.
I feel like you've got that that Matt Damon kind of go along, get along vibe and that kind of thing, and
so you're telling me in the scene of what's that movie where he goes up and he's like, how do you like them apples?
I was just about to say that. Good Will Hunting. You like apples? I got a number. How do you like them apples? It's one of my favorite scenes of all time in the movie. So that is Jesse. And then I get Tom Cruise just because, Tom has aged better than me, but I get Tom Cruise because we're about the same size, and Tom Cruise always running. He still, is getting it done in the action flicks. And I mean, Top Gun Maverick. So I get Tom Cruise. Now he's a little out there. Maybe you could say I'm a little out there in some instances as well, but I get Tom Cruise. So that's my casting. Well, and Sean, Christopher Walken. I don't know about that. Like talking a staccato kind of sound. Gandolfini is dead. They did say actor past or present. Vince Vaughn is one that I thought about, but Vince Vaughn is too cool to play Vince D'Addario. So that's why I went with Jon Favreau. So
no one bring that up to Vince.
That's right. That's exactly right. So that is
isn't he the WKRP guy?
He is the W. Oh man, come on. Not salty, but El Conk. Come on, you're killing me with this. At least give me Herb Tarlick. I mean, wear the plaid suits and jackets and all that kind of stuff. Yes, that's right. Brian is Tony Soprano. John, you got it exactly right. Sean just got banned. All right, so that's going to do it for tonight. Good questions. I like that little IB casting.
That's a good one to end it on.
There. Yep, I think so as well. We will be back tomorrow, and of course, we've got IB Countdown to Kickoff coming up for you this weekend as well. So we will talk to you then. Hit the like button on your way out, and of course, the friendly reminders to subscribe, rate, and review. And we will talk to you Thursday on IB Nation Sports Talk.